Yeah, with our group.
I saw that SPS is doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, everybody's got things going on. Yeah. Yeah.
Regular stuff.
This is more of that.
We gotta try to get back.
I know they're still presenting,
Yeah.
right?
What we're on right now.
Yeah, we're on and it,
Okay, well, I
It
did,
did say reporting in progress.
yeah,
I heard that.
so. We just need to speak up, because this is picking us up.
Oh, that replaces our individual mics.
Yeah,
And are they presenting like Mark and?
yes, we haven't.
Okay.
Justin's not gonna do special ed, because I'm already doing it.
At least you've got this planned out. You, the husband.
I've got you, don't worry. Just
everybody, mailman.
just really get all these.
True story.
Yeah, I said, I was like, yeah, there was a nice morning. I was one to the doctor and. Sure, after further. He's been sleeping all day. He had surgery December 4th. He had a hernia over there. And like one of the incisions.
We need it right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to sort of-
One of the incisions is like not healing right. And he has cellulitis all over his stomach.
Poor guy.
That's not comfortable.
Now,
You must be miserable.
yeah. Sleeping all day today.
That'll be good, get him some rest. Diane is gonna be late, so we're really just waiting for Scott and Doug.
Scott,
And Doug did confirm with me the time.
Okay, because I was gonna text him.
No, he did, he wrote, he said, I just want to verify.
well, it's a workshop. I don't have to like,
No,
we don't
this
have
is,
to-
no,
we could,
nope,
I don't have to be too formal,
correct,
right?
exactly.
Chill.
People said.
Yes.
I can hear you. Exactly.
That's her chair. You leave it here.
Yeah, so really Scott and Doug, I know.
Y'all seems to use
Scott. He usually comes late.
And I think 5:30 will be tight.
Exactly, yeah, he makes sense.
I used to let somebody use the back one. Or they're gonna get this.
This room is bigger setup like this.
Yeah.
Opens it right up.
Yeah, I like it. Keeps you with your spider.
I don't.
Had to say something.
Yeah, had to, no. Before Kitty
Not to
sat down,
listen to
I'm told like,
Oh, yeah,
I was going,
shaking everything,
I
yeah,
was going like this.
I noticed.
She jumped the last meeting because Spider ran by. It
It
was a big, yeah.
Big
Scott
straight
got
on.
up and killed it. And
Full
so
blown
did her.
attack, anxiety, like, now I got PTSD
Yeah.
over it.
Nightmares.
So I do have spider nightmares all the time, like, I'm deathly afraid of bugs.
I wonder what that represents.
Growing up in Berkeley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes.
We used to have to fumigate all the time growing up,
Yeah.
and we were in a 3 family, so we're in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
That'll do it.
So,
Yeah.
and there's no other feeling.
And
And
something
you
from
lay in bed, and you see it crawling up the wall, or you put your pants on, and there's one in.
I would be afraid too, Nicole.
Yeah,
That's what it's.
yeah.
I'll take a snake or a mouse. No problem. What do you mean?
Oh, my favorite pen is that I think is.
All right, so what are your thoughts, Katie? You wanna get started? A few more minutes or get started?
Yeah.
I don't know how.
We are live, yes, we know.
Been
Thank-
live.
Can you hear us though? So that's good. You can hear us over this? Okay, perfect.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started today with our workshop for Sabatis primary school closing discussion. We don't have everybody here tonight. I know a couple might trickle in a little bit later. But we do want to welcome Teresa Mador.
Yes.
Mador. She is our newest, school board member, replacing Jill for, the town of Litchfield. And I don't know if you wanna say anything, put you on the
I'm-
spot here.
I'm happy to be here. I am a retired educator. I subbed for RSU4 for I think 4 or 5 years. This was my first year not to. And my daughter and son-in-law moved into the district, so I want to help out the school district in Bridgeville.
Thank you, welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Welcome, thank you. Okay,
We'll jump in.
jump right in.
Okay, so, we have lots of information and we've tried to make it as, you know, succinct and digestible as possible. So stop if you feel like, whoa, time out, or, but we have things we're gonna give out. We'll answer questions as we go through. And so, the agenda, we started with the poll and just make sure people have had the results. I have printed out the poll and the questions that were asked of community members. And what's really important, as you know, as we get into this, and if the board does vote on January 8th to close it, we have 2 months to get information out to families, you know, and community members. I mean, we'll make sure that we have our website up to date, that people can be asking Q&A questions, sending out information to the towns. So it does give us some good time to make sure those questions that are coming up are getting answered. And so I'll pass that out to all of you at the board. So just so the public hears, 219 folks voted. 52.51% were yes, 33.33% were no, and 14.16 was undecided. And there were some questions that I think once they see the answers, or people start watching these presentations, they'll get the answers that they were asking for. So give that to you all. So you have it. You've already seen the staff questions, and I'll make sure after tomorrow that I send that out to the staff to make sure they know we've answered those questions, and if they have any more, that they want them to send those to me, and we'll add those. So, you know, I think we're off to the poll, although it's only 219. If we get the undecided, you'll have, you know, enough. Just to confirm, remember that once the board approves to move it to referendum on the 8th, and it goes to vote on April 8th, all 3 towns must say yes. It can't, if we're not taking the total, and the total is the answer, each town needs to approve it. Okay. So that's just clarification on that.
Katie,
Yeah.
can you explain why all 3 towns have to?
Because,
Approve it.
yes, so, good question. So all 3 towns have to, do you want to read it from there, Stan?
Sure. So the, information we got from the lawyer is that actually the DOE takes the position if there's multiple municipalities that are going to vote. And so the reason that all 3 have to vote is because when we restructured several years ago, all 3 towns send 100% of their students to grade 1 and grade 2 at Sabattis Primary. So had it been only Sabattis students that attend, or Wales students, that would be the only town voting. But since all towns send all students at those grade levels, all 3 vote. And the DOE takes the position that if either municipality votes to close, the question passes and the school is closed. So it's not that all 3 towns have to vote to close. The DOE takes the position that if any of the towns vote to close, it closes.
Oh, say that again, so.
I'll read it verbatim. Thank you. The DOE takes the position that if either municipality votes to close, so any of the 3, the question
that's different than what I
passes, because
said.
the question is, do you favor closing, right? So the question passes and the school is closed.
Okay. So it doesn't have to be unanimous for all 3 towns to all say yes in order for it to close. It only takes 1 town.
It would
saying
have
yes
to be unanimous to stay open.
To stay open.
Unanimous, no, across the board to stay open.
Okay.
So it's not a majority of the voters, it's just
No,
if
it's
one
not.
community votes
correct.
no, the school
It's
closed.
not like what we do with the budget
Right.
ballot referendum. It's not a,
Well, the reason,
So it's almost the reverse, because she had to say it to me a
Right.
couple times too.
yeah,
It's almost the reverse. They're voting to keep it open. The board has
No,
approved it.
they're voting to
No.
close it.
vote to close.
Okay, but you just said though, if one, all right, so say it again.
Yep.
No, say it again,
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
because I,
So the,
So we
the
get right
question
here.
is phrased, do you support closing? Like, are you going, do you want to close? So if you say yes, you're saying, yes, I support the closure, right? So the DOE takes the position that if either municipality votes to close, so we have three, right? So if any of those three vote to close, the question passes and the school closes.
okay. Okay. That's a little
So the
different.
only way it would stay open is if all three voted.
No.
I don't want it to close. I don't want it to close. I don't want it to close.
Okay.
Is this open to questions from the floor?
Do you want to take questions from the floor now, or you want to wait?
I think we could take it in
Yeah.
each category.
Okay.
I guess, I know, I guess this is more of a statement than a question again, because this is what the DOE says, but I feel like that gives a lot of,
Oh.
that gives a lot of clout to any individual town.
Mhm.
To be like, yep, don't care about that one. Boom. Which feels a little weird.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one here thinking that,
I
right?
think that's why we had to
That's a
hear
lot
it
of
3
power.
times.
That's why we have to hear it 3 times. I mean, believe
That's
me,
a lot of
we've
power
gone
to
over
a
it 3
single town in the
Yeah.
group.
So is that how Wales Central School closed? Or the
No.
same? Okay, something different.
Wales
Only
was all, the only people that went to Wales was the Wales students.
Okay,
So as the town of Wales had to vote to keep it open,
okay. I
right?
just want, like, historically.
And had they voted to keep it open, they would bear the cost individually,
Yeah.
right? Similar, if our municipalities vote to keep it open, because all three are voting, all three are gonna bear the cost to keep it open using our local cost share.
Right.
But if one of the towns or two of the towns, so say Wales and Litchfield vote to close, Sabatis could at that point be like, no, we want to keep this open, and they would have to pay for.
I don't
Yeah.
believe so. We
No?
can double check triple check, because we double checked, but we can triple check on this and make sure that's correct and accurate information. But
But I remember something at some point, someone saying that like the town itself could decide to keep the building open. I just want to be clear on that, you know, like. I don't remember where I heard that though.
Well, I think when we were talking about, when, if you read under closing, because our students all attend Sabatis primary, it makes a little different nuance.
Got it.
So we'll triple check that.
triple check.
Okay, these are good questions. Welcome, Scott. We just got started.
Yeah,
No worries.
sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, so the next part, we were gonna talk about October 1 enrollment, just so you know where the information is coming from. So I used a common number rather than taking a number today or yesterday of what our counts are. I'm following a standard that this is what was reported to the DOE, our October 1 count, and that's what I'm using. Okay, the numbers aren't exactly the same today because, as you know, students leave, students come, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page of what numbers are being used, so I want you to have that. You know, our October 1 count is also broken down by communities, so you can also see how many students are from Wales and Sabatis and Litchfield that make up that grade. So I want to make sure you have that. You'll see, overall, you're only down 3 students, in enrollment this year. Doesn't mean our average in our state funding is only gonna be down 3, because remember, they do an average.
Can
But,
I pass these to the audience?
yeah, we have extra, sure. Okay, so you can see how it's broken down. On the other side of your paper, because I couldn't get it all, is where students live that are out of district placement and our homeschool numbers. Our homeschool numbers are up by 7. But remember, that can be one family has 4 students that they're homeschooling, right? So it's not the number of families, it's the number of students. And then you can see our superintendent's agreements. We brought them down, we have brought those down slightly. You know, the share their families that we did deny. And, you know, and their families we approved. So we take each one on a case by case, but at least you can see the numbers.
So Katie with pre-K,
Yes,
50, that's our max.
our max is 64.
Okay.
Our pre-K is down this year. But as you know, I've talked to Jan a little bit about that, and we have options in our district, in our daycares, in our childcares. So that's not really, I'm planning as if we're gonna have 5 kindergarten teachers.
Okay. Cause that was gonna be my question.
Exactly, so
How do
we're
we do that?
hopeful that our local childcare and so forth, that number will go up. Okay, but yes, it is lower, we're not at full capacity this year.
Okay.
So good question on that. But when you see the next information, that number is gonna be up to kindergarten.
So I forget, what was the preliminary layout, Libby Tozier? Where are all the grades gonna be placed if we close Sebastian primary?
Well, that's the next thing on the agenda.
All
now.
right.
Are we ready to move?
Well, and then-
We're getting it
Yeah,
done.
we're getting.
We got, are we ready to move forward? Okay, so we have these lovely blown up.
I didn't even notice.
Yes. Just so people can see what the layout is, if you haven't been there and so forth. I want to thank staff, Brenda. Thank you, Brenda, for helping with this, and Mark and Jan, Jenny, Sherry. There's a lot of people involved in doing all this work. I want to start by saying that what we're proposing is what we believe is the best decision, okay? We have been having these discussions every day. Matter of fact, I met with Cherie and Jenny and Jan again this morning to go back through to make sure we're doing what's in the best interest of our students, our staff, and our space. And answering some questions, like if those apartments have kids, do we have room? So we really, at one point, we really talked a lot about, could we fit 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade at Cary Ricker? Well, we could, but we would be taking every little space and no room for additional classrooms and so forth. So to us, we felt that was too tight, okay? We also, I looked at numbers by town. And that would be a big change. Okay, so we landed here and I'm gonna tell you about it. So if you go to Libby Tozier, which is this right here. All right, we're proposing that this be kindergarten and 1st grade. So there are 5 classes for each of those. So as you notice, I'm not putting where they are, okay? Because I don't want people to say, well, you put in and now you're moving us. Okay? So this will be a decision at school-based level. What's best for where kindergarten's gonna be, where is best for 1st grade to be, and those decisions will be made, okay? So you can see there are 10 classrooms identified. We have 5. Oops, did I count right?
I only see 9.
6, okay, we got the 5 here, 10 here,
There's
and this
6 on
this
there.
is 1 here, yeah. So.
6 on the bottom.
6
We
and
got-
4.
Yeah, 6 and
6 and
4.
4, so I do have it, thank you. I get nervous when I present, so I know sometimes it doesn't look like it, but I do. I get nervous. So yes, we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We even counted it, Sam, not down in this. So we went there, and then we have 2 special ed classrooms there. The other spaces would be determined, right? We have art, music, possibly sharing here. We have spaces in here for any support staff. We have this space here. Okay, so I'm gonna take you through Libby Tozier, which is, we're proposing a principal be there. So Jan has been serving as a teaching principal. She's doing a fantastic job balancing her classroom responsibilities and administrative responsibilities. It puts pressure, obviously, on her and teaching the classes. She has been fortunate to have lower class sizes, especially in the afternoon. But it also puts pressure on the ed tech that when she has to pop out, the ed tech is taking over. So we believe with obviously having kindergarten and first grade there,
Right, not
We need-
pre-K.
not pre-K, we need to have a we need to have a principal. So this would have a principal at the school. There would be 10 teachers, 2 special ed teachers, and then we have ed techs. There are no changes in adding positions or reducing positions. Okay, this is taking our positions that we have and allocating them. Guidance and social worker is almost like a package, right? That, yes, Doug,
I just clarifying.
yes.
By adding, or changing, you're not talking about Libby Tozier, just Libby Tozier, you're talking about Sabatis Primary and Libby Tozier?
I'm talking about first grade coming over here.
Okay, I'm just, so you're not,
We wouldn't eliminate any first grade positions. is that what you're
exactly,
asking?
right, I'm trying to
Correct.
clarify, right?
Correct.
yeah,
There are
okay.
5 first grade teachers, there's 5 classrooms for them.
Okay,
Okay, these are, I want you asking, because that's what people ask.
yeah.
So you're asking exactly what you should be asking. The guidance and social worker, right? So we have, right now, Sabatis Primary shares the guidance and social worker with the middle school, right? So looking at that time that is allocated to Sabatis Primary, we would look at that time allocated, right? The 2 staff members at Carrie Ricker, and they would formulate together what's the best in meeting the middle school's needs, Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier. So we have to rely on our experts, rely on our staff to say, what's the best schedule to meet student needs? So that's why I say here, guidance and social work is shared. It's a shared positions, because we're not asking to add positions. We're taking current positions and reallocating them. So, in talking to the principals and Michaela, they're gonna have to work this through, okay? Because we will have staff obviously traveling between the 2 schools, so they're gonna make sure that we're able to accommodate.
You have here shared Oak Hill Middle School and Carrie Ricker.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more feasible to share between Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier?
Yes, but we want more, we've got staff at Sabatis Primary that go to Oak Hill Middle School. So.
Oh, okay, all right, so you're more, okay,
Yes.
yeah, all right, I get it now.
I just didn't want to say, well, they're gonna be here. We don't know
Right.
that. We want.
Okay, I was just thinking it would be more in proximity with the 2 schools instead of traveling from Sabatis to Litchfield.
Exactly. But they're gonna have to work that out.
Okay.
Do they spend a day at one of the schools? Do they?
Well, you know, and I know you're never gonna be in the right place at the right time,
Correct.
because we've run into this
Exactly.
before.
Yeah. So they're gonna have to work that through.
Okay,
1 secretary, 1 nurse, and then a specialist. Art, music, and PE would share with Carrie Ricker. The IT person would share with Carrie Ricker. And then custodial staff. We really talked with Brenda about her continuing to stay the head custodian. She knows those buildings like the back of her hand.
mhm.
So to move her to one building and have another, it doesn't make sense. So, she will remain half-time head at Libby Tozier, half-time head at Carrie Ricker. And then we have 2 custodians at Libby Tozier. And again, she's gonna work with her staff at both schools to make sure that the needs are being met. Okay,
So for the art, music, gym,
Yep.
currently they're covering 3 schools.
correct,
So now they would be covering just the 2.
right, they're going back, right, they don't have to travel across,
Yeah.
yes, they're located right there. And then food service, right now, Libby Tozier has an assistant kitchen manager and 1 kitchen worker. We're making it a manager and a worker. So that's Libby Tozier. Carrie, so flip it over.
Katie, can I ask a couple more
Of course,
questions
yes,
before we flip?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so teachers, those numbers of classrooms stay the same.
correct.
We could be seeing positions eliminated in food service and potentially custodian.
Yes, that is, you'll see, after my presentation, Sam's gonna go
Okay.
over the impact.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. We can always come back, if we think so. All right, so Carrie Ricker. This is the office area. This is where the kitchen cafeteria are, and this is the gym. and 2 classrooms back here. These classrooms have been assigned to pre-K. Okay? Then we have Harry Ricker's first floor, second floor. Okay, so you can see at Carrie Ricker, right now, we have, we have 5 second grade classrooms. We have 5 third grade classrooms, and we have 4 fourth grade classrooms. Right, so you can see on the first floor, 5 classrooms, which probably would be first grade, right, second grade, excuse me. Second grade would be here. We have 3 special ed classrooms, another special ed classroom. These might be reassigned, but this is it to show you. And then on the second floor, we have 4 and 5 for the 3rd and 4th grade. So 3rd and 4th grade would be upstairs, and second grade would be downstairs. And we have a need for 4 special ed classrooms. And then the other spaces obviously will be assigned to Title I, coaches, so forth. And then we have our art room still, open. So that's how they fit, okay? The staffing, we're recommending a principal. We're recommending a dean. To help support with behavior needs. So we see that, in talking with the current principal, Carrie Ricker, the need is really the support with the day-to-day behavior issues that pop up. So while they're managing other parts of this responsibility of admin, the dean can be focus on that. The teachers remain the same, 16, which is what we currently have for those grades. 4 special ed teachers, the ed techs stay the same. They're being allocated according to the programs, but we're not adding or reducing any of those positions. The guidance and social worker, they have one, but as I said, they're going to be working as a team on how to cover Libby Tozier and the middle school, okay? Secretary, I put 1.5. They're going to need additional secretarial support. The middle school needs additional secretarial support. So we're gonna look at our secretaries across the board, the Sabatis position as well, and how to best give them additional support. Okay? There would be a nurse, the specialist in IT share, then in custodial, we spoke about Brenda being half-time head and 3.5 custodians. So they picked up some custodial time here. But again, they're gonna work with their staff because what we're doing is we're extending one of their custodians. We're gonna make them full. And then food service, we're aligning it with the middle school. So they'll have 1 kitchen manager and 3 kitchen workers, which is what the middle school is, okay? So any questions on this?
Can you go over the pre-K, because I know you said we had 50 pre-K students, but I don't want people to think that we're putting 25 in each class. Because we have a split session for pre-K, right?
Yes, exactly. So there are 2 sessions for each of those classrooms. They can max at 16.
Right,
So that's why I say, 64.
right,
So
because,
16 in each session.
right,
There are 4 sessions.
right,
Yes.
okay,
The pre-K, this gives them their own wing. You're gonna hear in costs when Sam goes over costs. We do need to do some retro here with the bathrooms to make sure they're adequate for pre-K size students. And we've talked about the playground, so when Sam goes into our costs, we'll talk about that. But they have a nice area. The buses can come pick up pre-K right outside the door, drop off pre-K right here, so they have their separate area.
So in regards to pre-K, and like lunch and breakfast and that sort of thing, have you figured out how you're going to deal with that? With regards to, being in the same school as kids that are quite a bit older?
Yeah, I think, right, a lot of pre-K sometimes take they get carts and they bring them up.
They bring 'em up.
Because part of pre-K is also learning to eat together and so forth, so we haven't gotten to that. But that's what I picture is they'll go down, get the cart, bring it up, and they'll have it in their classroom. But we haven't really talked it out, but
Okay.
Believe me, our pre-K teachers will be advocating with what's best and we'll be working with them. As one steps and. So, but good question, very good question.
So numbers wise, in terms of student numbers at Carrie Ricker and Oak Hill Middle School is similar.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think the idea of having a dean makes a lot of sense. My one like fairness is the specialist. Because at the middle school, they only have those four grades. And now you're asking the elementary specialists to do 6 grades total.
Well, right now they don't do pre-K,
Okay. Which I have thoughts about that too, but
but,
yeah,
but they would be doing what they're doing this year.
Just with less.
with less.
With less
time.
travel, yeah, it's less travel.
And they have dedicated spaces in both of these buildings, so they won't be on carts.
No, the one here is art and music, and they would, it's all in planning, right? If they're gonna share this space, how do they plan it so that they're not there at the same time,
Which they
If
used
not-
to do that, I think.
right? Yeah, and, you know, we have to be flexible in that, this is not gonna be ideal for all things,
Mhm.
right? But we're gonna do our best, the gym could also be used for some of that, you know, if the gym is available and music wants to use the gym, so I think there can be flexibility here. Over here at Carrie Ricker, their space is maintained.
Okay.
It's gonna be this that is not as maintained, because they're used to, you know, this is where the art room is. And this is where the music room, so they're gonna have to work together as a specialist. Who's gonna use what space? They have this space here, you know, so.
And right now in Sabatis Primary, they share a classroom on the second floor.
Right. And I mean, at Libby Tozier, before we moved things around, art and music was behind the stage and it was at the city. You had music on one day, you had art on the other, so.
That's how it's
can be done.
labeled from the
Yeah.
old diagram. Yeah, full floor plan.
And just so you know, in Spatus Primary, we've taken over that space over vacation. They're gonna be in carts
So,
after vacation. To make room for special ed needs, but, yeah, so, and if they're watching and listening, the specialists, shout out to them for their flexibility at
Right.
SPS.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like, we'll do whatever needs to be done. Ella was like, I've taught in the library before. You know, Jessica said, you know, we'll make it work, just leave the stuff there, I'll grab my stuff, so they know what the needs are and they are being extremely flexible, so a shout out to them because we keep shifting and changing because our student needs shift and change. But these are all good questions.
and do we feel like we have enough special ed space, the way that Libby Tozier is configured? Is there room for expansion if needed?
They have this room.
Okay.
Yeah. They have this and then they have these 2 rooms. This is based on current staffing for special ed, 6 teachers. So we're putting 2 here and 4 there. And we'll have to watch it. Yeah. Justin's thinking about who's gonna be in these programs and who's gonna be in those programs.
If the need arises, say we need more special ed space and we don't have the space, do we know what like a portable classroom runs cost wise and?
We haven't looked at that.
Okay.
What we've talked about is what students could move to Carrie Ricker, even if the grade is different.
Yeah.
So we're trying to, of course, the ideal would be to be with their peers. They wouldn't want older kids to come down, but they can be open to maybe a younger student going up because that's where they're going to be. So every student's gonna be looked at what's the best placement, which is the best program.
And actually, I heard I can't remember, we've had so many conversations, but I can't remember who said it, but someone said, you know, it actually makes more sense to have kindergarten and first grade together rather than pre-K and kindergarten, because your kindergartners or your pre-K are on like the split session. They're not in on Wednesdays, so if you have K and 1 together, they're there together as 2 grades for the same school day, rather than like, they're not interacting the same way.
I like them having their own wing or pre-K.
Yeah,
Sorry, one more.
so we're monitoring that, yes.
One more question, where does GT fall for space?
Well, yeah, Carrie Ricker and Shelley, they've been doing some art stuff, which you heard Shelley talk about art. Hey, Diane, come on in. Right there, right? Shelley? Want to talk about elementary G2?
Yeah, I mean, I think that and Jenny might be able to answer better what Elizabeth is doing right now for space. But I do know we've been talking about sort of, the different ways I might provide services, and so I think that will be flexible and probably can be based on space that's available at a given time. We've been talking about, pushing into classrooms some more, a combination of pushing in and working with students and pulling them out. So that's conversation I've been having with Ruth and Elizabeth, so they're open to being flexible about that.
And we do have rooms open. And I
Yeah,
know,
there's small
Hi,
spaces.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, there's small spaces. Right now, she has a larger classroom because we have the size.
Right.
And she's only at Carrie Ricker 2 days a week with third and fourth graders, and I know she goes to SPS as well, and we do have some smaller, even with putting pre-K and second grade there and keeping resources available for special ed should we need to expand. There's some smaller spaces, because she does pull out kids now for some English language arts classes, and we'll still have some smaller spaces available.
Yeah.
okay, so Samantha, what does this mean for us financially?
So do you want to shift down to the last one, since it kind of parallels all the things you just talked about?
Or how you would do that, yes.
Yes. All right. So we're gonna just bump to kind of that last bullet point, the anticipated cost savings, because it kind of goes hand in hand with the items that we just talked through. And so we'll do facilities needs towards the end of the meeting, if that makes better sense. So I'm gonna send around, just a handout that outlines some estimated cost implications for the things that we have talked about from a staffing and a building perspective. I want to emphasize and repeat, it's estimated at this point, right? So we're working hard as a team to kind of put teeth behind all of our calculations and our projections. But just walking down those one at a time. So this is if Sabatis Primary were to close, we would anticipate some savings in that we wouldn't have a teaching principal at Libby Tozier any longer, right? So that stipend would be a savings that you'll note there. That might seem counterintuitive because now it's going to be a principal, but that's taking an existing principal position from SPS and moving those funds over to Libby Tozier. Okay. Some advocacy has been heard for a dean of students to assist, as Katie mentioned, in managing behaviors. So that's should seem like a low number, and it's a negative, right? Because this is about cost savings. What do we anticipate for cost savings? So if moving 2 or 1.5 grade levels of students into a building requires additional staffings, that's going to offset some savings, right? So that's listed as a negative. That would typically for a full year be more like a $90,000 price point, but where our dean of students only work school year days, they're not on an administrative schedule, then their contract begins in September. So we are not paying in the next fiscal year for July and August, if that makes sense, right? We're budgeting for thinking about the impact in FY26. FY26 would cover 10/12 of their salary and benefits. As Katie mentioned, some changes in custodial staff. So what we had at Sabatis Primary, we are taking the half of the head custodian, and that will now be a full-time head custodian at the middle school where it was shared before, for some additional support in that building, which I'm sure would be much appreciated. And then we had 2 full-time custodians at Sabatis Primary. So we're taking a quarter or 2 hours per day of one of those positions and using it to make one of the 3/4 positions at Carrie Ricker whole. So giving Carrie Ricker 2 additional hours a day of custodial support, which would leave us with 1.75 of a reduction. Okay, so health and benefits, our salary and benefits, that's what you're looking at there. And then in food service, we have 2 currently at Sabatis Primary, 2 employees. And so just moving one of those positions to Carrie Ricker, as Katie mentioned, but reducing the assistant food service manager position. And that's the savings there. And then, going down to 4 buildings instead of 5, we wouldn't need 5, health support staff, so we would reduce the licensed practical nurse. This year, we have 4 IT technicians. One is based at the high school, one at the middle school, one is at Sabatis Primary, and then assists here at central office with our board meetings. And then one is shared between Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier. So we would reduce to one at the high school, one at the middle school, and one shared between Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier, so reducing one position there. The operational costs, rather than going through them line by line, I summed them together. So when you look at what was budgeted last year for operational costs at Sabatis Primary, what that number is not including is supplies, because we still have the same number of students that are sneezing and using the restroom. So we still need those supplies for those little guys. And then we do have an obligation that has historically been budgeted to and expended in the Sabatis Primary maintenance lines, which is one of our energy projects. Sheena will talk in detail later about some potential bus savings, but we estimate a pretty substantial savings in bus fuel. She'll go over the detail on that shortly. As Katie mentioned, moving pre-K to Carrie Ricker might take some modification of the bathroom facilities. So we estimate 20,000, but we are actively looking into ways to bring those numbers down, like the cost incurred with the move down. So one thought that we'll be looking into with Mark and his team is by a suggestion that Jan brought forward, can any of the actual facilities at Sabatis Primary be moved over to Libby Tozier? Is that possible? You know, if hypothetically,
Toilets.
yeah, the toilets, the
Right.
fixtures, sorry. That are appropriately sized right now for smaller children. So that could potentially lessen that cost incurred. There is a special ed classroom that will need a behavior room, or a quiet room, I think is what you call it, Ricky. So our team has looked at that room, and by specs, by measurement, it's appropriate in measure, so we would just need modification on egress, doors, et cetera, and maybe some other.
And we're talking about this space. Talking about this space right here. So it has a door here that would be closed and the door would be moved. And then we have to put some padding on, you know, for safety reasons and so forth. So this meets the standard for a quiet room, so, which is great. So, so it's really just kind of moving some things around. So we can put some money in there for that.
Yes, and that was a wonderful suggestion from Diane.
Yeah, and Diane made that suggestion this morning. See, it all comes together.
Just continuing down the list, there is a section of the play area that the pre-K students would then have access to while they're at Carrie Ricker, and there is a need to have some fencing to close off a delivery area which is adjacent to it. So to make sure that that is safe for those young students, that would be some additional fencing. It's not a lot, but that vinyl fencing is pricey. And then just estimating the number of professional staff that would be relocating or moving to a different building and or classroom. You know, we estimated around 27 without knowing the actual room assignments. Again, just an estimate. And that stipend per their contract is $600. And then professional moving support, again, we estimated about $20,000, but we are working hard to look into options that are cost neutral, actually. So the last time that this district was reorganized and people were moving from building to building for their instructional spaces, the district was able to reach out to and access incarcerated individuals that under supervision for a $0 to assist in that moving. So hopefully we'd be able to bring that cost down as much as possible, and then really just additional moving trucks to support to get that move done quickly and efficiently. One other minute change that might happen with the custodian, we may decide it's of benefit to keep custodians on whose positions are not gonna be brought forward for an extra couple of months in the next fiscal year to assist with the moving and situating, staff. So just, I know I've said it before, I'm just gonna say it again, estimates, not hard and fast, as we continue to work through planning, then we'll bring forward updates and changes as we can.
Tim, underneath the operational cost,
Mhm.
you mentioned the maintenance agreements that we have. What's our responsibility there? Do they end when the building goes, or do we have to make those payments?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's two different things, right? So our service agreement, which is where the company that we contract with does routine maintenance and then calls in when we have things that are failing or need attention. We would end our relationship with Sabatis Primary, so we would reduce that portion of the cost from a service agreement that we would enter into. What I'm referring to with the cost that would remain is like a loan, an obligation, a note that we have to Siemens, who have done several energy projects for us over years in the district. And so historically, if an energy project was done that touched more than one school, then the bill or the loan was
Right.
budgeted
That's-
to. the
that's what I was
purchase property
asking about.
services. So since historically, Sabatis Primary has had a budget and an expenditure for one of the energy projects tied
Okay.
to it, that would need to be reallocated. It wouldn't be a savings. We would still owe that. It would just be paid out of a different buildings line.
right, okay, thank you.
Could you provide some of the items for the operational costs? I don't need the dollars, just curious what they are.
Yeah, sure. So we're talking about like utilities, so it could be electricity. Could be water and sewer. We're talking about phone systems and our bills for the phones. Any equipment that is used for maintenance of the buildings. Fuel to
Heating.
make those
Heating.
equipment. Yeah, oh, did I not say that? Yeah, heating.
Well, you said utility.
Yeah. Purchase property services, like all of our inspections, trash removal, pest control. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's clearly, I mean, it's not really, the total estimated savings is just as a one-time whack, whereas if we kept this building open for 5 years, that 138 would be times 5
Yeah.
plus increases over time, so it's really a much larger savings than this.
Yeah,
And the staff moving stipends, professional moving support lines are just a one-time cost, so that will no longer,
Yeah.
there'll be savings there.
Yep.
Moving forward.
yeah. As we've talked about this, I feel like our conversation has centered around the impact to the budget. So that's what this is representing, is the impact to the budget. But you're absolutely right. The longer that building is not open, the longer we're saving on the operational costs. Absolutely.
Can you talk to me a little more about the estimated staff moving stipends? You said $600. Is that a day? What is that?
No, it's per contract. So
Contract.
in the professionals contract, they have a stipend for a transfer. And if they are moving outside of the school day, then they get a one-time stipend of $600, which was negotiated with their union.
So it's not based on hours, it's a one-time
One time.
stipend.
Okay.
Is it possible to, rather than add the dean of students, to simply use something similar to what we have going on right now, like a working teacher position for that? And use this $20,000 stipend?
The issue is the teacher has to come out of the classroom.
Well, only when there's an issue.
I hate to say it, but yeah, I mean, I think Jan's doing that already, and I would say it's taking.
Right, which is why I'm bringing this up. If she's able to be a head principal position, part-time, and still fulfill her duties. I mean,
That's because she has an.
you also have other, staffing within the school that would be able to potentially assist with behavioral problems too. I mean, you've got special education teachers in there, you've got counselors and things, so. That's another pretty significant savings if you could do a stipend position for that rather than a full-time. Just a thought.
I'm guessing that all the improvements that Sabatis Primary would need would also be a line that would not be an expense money saved, that we didn't have to replace the roof and.
Correct.
Yeah, the repair and maintenance line is included in the operational costs. So that operational cost is kind of a bubble that has several lines within it, and repair and maintenance is one of them.
Oh, I just assumed that would be more.
Well, I think what you're saying is, we don't have to replace the boiler.
Yes.
I think what you're saying is, okay,
For what
this
we
is
would-
$1 million, $2 million worth of thing that we'll never have to do because we closed it.
So in essence, everything that's on our RSU4 capital improvement plan for Sabatis Primary comes off the list. It comes off the docket for future years. But
That could be
historically,
Yeah, I think that's a.
historically, those maintenance lines have been reduced, like, not this past year, but the year before on the budget floor. So those are things that if we had more money
Yeah.
within the budget, we would have been spending it to keep the buildings.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Uh,
workshop, so we're not
yeah.
really formal.
So I think that it's important for us to, down on paper, maybe put those listed out if we're gonna go to a vote.
Mhm.
So that what Scott said too, how it goes for 5 years, we'd be saving that money over 5 years. So it's like spelled out on, the sheet. If you
I'll
didn't
add that.
Put that down yet.
I'm wondering about, 'cause I see playground fencing, but I don't see anything around playground equipment for pre-K. Knowing the new Carrie Ricker playground that went in, I'm not sure how much of that equipment is designed for little.
They went up to look, and Jim, you can speak to it. They went up to look and they felt all the equipment, but the one that spins would be off limits, but
I don't know how
that one
that
would be off limits. The
Yeah.
others, they felt comfortable that they would have play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Miss Casares was up there for summer school.
Yeah.
Last year, and she said it worked
It worked,
great,
okay.
except for the spinning thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen the spinning thing in action, so we don't like it either.
You don't want it.
Right. The spinning thing.
The stories I hear about the spinny thing.
Exactly. So yes, we asked if they felt they could manage and they said yes.
Maybe we just make it so it doesn't spin anymore. I mean,
Exactly.
if it's not being used.
Oh, it's being used.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it is
Oh,
being
they
used.
love it.
They love the spinning thing.
The teachers don't love it, the children.
Does not like it.
I
They're
don't
getting
love it.
stuck in it.
That's something I have to.
It's
Right.
Hey, I'm a Gen X kid.
It's, and it doesn't even compare. It doesn't even compare because you're on it by yourself,
It's
right?
like
It's a little cuppy thing.
Yeah.
Or you can, oh, the big,
one,
yeah,
little one.
yeah, the cubby thing, like, ooh,
They love
They
it.
can't get out,
The
though.
Kids love it.
they can't get out of it.
Or it's
They
Either
get
they're
stuck
walking
in
and
it.
Okay, as long as there's play space, like, that's a critical part of pre-K.
Is there anything at Sabatis Primary that would be still in a good condition to bring over there or no?
Okay, I would say no.
No.
No, I think they're both,
Okay,
I think they're both closed off.
Yeah.
The slides are.
In fact, one of the things that came up last year was like, if Sabatis Primary stays open, the playground would need to be
Yeah.
replaced,
Completely.
not repaired, replaced.
Replaced.
yeah.
Yeah.
On the list.
So I think that would be
Exactly.
like something we should
Yes.
be able to look at, like,
Okay.
that is on the list of things that
Maybe money.
need to be replaced if we were to stay open, and this is how much that savings, of not having to spend
Yeah.
that money would be.
I think our team could probably take a deep look at that capital improvement plan that Mark inherited, make, revisions to it of what it would look like. That would likely be something that would be put on the Sabatis Primary tab. And then that would be something great to bring forward, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I made note of it.
The other thing too is, and I know we're gonna talk about transportation, but
Mhm.
I'm assuming that this will be less time on buses for students.
He's gonna be coming up next.
I think this goes without saying, but I hope we can use our new truck and shiny new trailer to help mitigate some of this moving support cost.
The plan.
Absolutely.
I anticipate we'll need more than that
Well,
because,
sure,
yeah,
but
just the way that what we're looking into with the incarcerated folks is that it sounds like it's either a 1 10-hour day or 2 5-hour days that we get, so it would be like fast. So having just one truck and trailer, I think we'd want to spend the money to offset the cost of having professional movers come
is
in.
there an insurance issue with using the public? Like, can we have like
Volunteer.
I could
feed
look
them
into
lunch for the day and like have everybody come out?
I could look into that.
Or
Like
using,
raising a playground.
so if somebody in the community has
Runs.
a trailer, truck.
Multiple.
Yeah.
I know where.
Good lunch.
Good ones.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what do you do for a living there, Scott? Are you volunteering? your
Yes,
company?
trucks, I think, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, trucks.
I've heard that before.
But that's a very, like, that's a very tangible way to volunteer and give back into the
Oh,
community.
absolutely.
And I think people are more apt to
Yes.
say like, yes, I can raise my hand and give you 4 hours on that day, whereas like, come and read to the class, they're like, well, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I do believe.
That's a good-
We'd have to look into it. The option we're looking into now, correct me if I'm wrong, there cannot be children present.
Correct.
So if we were doing both, we'd have to be very careful
Or have
with
it 2
how,
different days.
or if we had enough community support, we wouldn't have to explore option A, then,
Right.
you know, I'll make some cookies and we'll call it a party.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Great suggestions. Okay, so put that aside for a minute.
Do you want us to stay on money for a minute?
Well, I'm gonna introduce that.
Okay,
Can
sorry.
we pop
No,
back
sorry.
real quick to food service for
Yes,
Libby Tozer? That was currently an assistant manager and 1 kitchen worker, correct?
Yes.
And you're bumping that up to a manager.
yes.
Would it be possible to keep that position as an assistant manager with a kitchen worker and then utilize the manager from Carrie Ricker?
We could explore that. The reason that we chose to do that is so that Carrie Ricker would be freed up more to be at Carrie Ricker, which is taking on an extra grade or grade and a half, right?
Sure.
So the thought was if the kitchen manager wasn't relying on the Carrie Ricker kitchen manager to assist with a lot of what they were doing, that would function more independently and the Carrie Ricker kitchen manager would have more time with those new grade levels added on. That was the thought behind it.
Maybe we see how it goes, make
Yeah, or
adjustments.
we could revisit the conversation and talk it through.
Can I have a quick question? Because it has something to do with food service. Are we servicing, food service to our pre-K kids or no?
Yeah.
Get breakfast at 3 p.m. to get lunch.
Okay.
Yep. Making note, I'm making note. Okay, so between the two of us, so bad. So, so the next phase, so now you've heard the plan. So what we want to talk about next is what needs to be looked at for Libby Tozer for facilities, maintenance items. So, well, because I think it's important to say, well, we know this building needs to be closed because of its needs, but at the same time, that's probably not gonna happen for another 5-7 years because there's gotta be a community will to wanna add an addition at a big expense. So instead of adding addition at $60 million, what can we do to make sure that this facility for grades kindergarten first are sufficient? How do we invest in that? So Mark has been working on getting some quotes on items. We'll share, we picked 5 different category items that we feel are the highest priority. And then being thoughtful about how do we pay for these things and when would we pay for these things? So they've got a lot of work on this, so I'll let Mark and Sam go over what we're proposing you consider, because what we've heard from the public is, do you have a plan? What's your plan? And so Libby Tozer needs to have a plan. So we're proposing some of these things that need to be done.
So Mark and I are gonna review this information with you in tandem. He's gonna talk from his director of operations perspective about the projects we've identified, the scope of work, the estimates he's collected so far, and the time frame and timeline of the work. And then I'm gonna talk about funding options for that work. So.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We have been working our tails off. I have never met with so many contractors repetitively. We're continuously going back into buildings, backtracking, really just trying to cross Ts, dot our Is, and make sure that we have everything we need to make this school a success for us. So bear with me with this. One of the first projects that we need to start with at Libby Tozier is our flooring. The carpets are atrocious. I mean, we walked every building, every part of that building, there's stains, there's stuff that these poor custodians faithfully go home at the end of the summer, correct me if I'm wrong, and they feel insufficient because they've scrubbed these carpets, they're just terrible. Along with this project, we've done some investigation, and of course, this old school, underneath the carpets aren't in great shape. They're just not, they're gonna need some repair as well. We're going through Pineland, who has done flooring for us. They cut us breaks, they give us deals. They're really a wonderful company. They're gonna be flexible because this is a big project. This is approximately 6 weeks worth of work. We would absolutely, in a perfect world, we'd start this immediately when the kids are gone, immediately. It's gonna take some extra work from custodians. I mean, you can imagine, we're gonna have to get the rooms completely cleaned out. Let them do their thing in there. We're gonna have to get the stuff back in there, and we're gonna have to make sure they're clean for a normal school year. For us as an operations standpoint, that is my biggest factor that I worry about, is making sure these schools are in the best shape so our teachers can teach our children. And they have everything they need, right? So Scott's made it really a must that as soon as he can get in that building and start this work, he needs to. He gives me the time frame of 6 weeks. That could go a little before or a little after, just depending on the damage to all the flooring underneath, because it's significant. But at the end of this, of course, you're gonna walk in that building, and I think it's really gonna help this shine, and it's also gonna help with some air quality in this building. And that is a big concern, right? So nice clean carpets, air quality, it does much more than appeal for the children and the teachers and the parents and everybody who's gonna visit this building, right? It's actually gonna add some quality to everybody who's in that building. And of course, Sam can talk a little bit of the financial end on that.
Oh, I see. You left it to me to say how much it is. $94,000. The estimate that came in. And a significant portion of that is not just the underfloor, subfloor that Mark mentioned, but also the scope of the work. You're talking not just about the classrooms, but the hallways as well.
Whole school.
Yeah. So
Carpet going back in or doing something different?
no. Commercial tile.
Vinyl tile.
Vinyl tiles
Yeah.
going in. Yeah, I think, the more fabric we can get out of the buildings, the less health risks we have in the building. So, Christine?
I know that one of the problems that school has, it's in a low-lying area, there's a lot of water table issues. Is part of this quote something to deal with water infiltration through the slab?
Well, we have done some drainage, and this is previous to me. Out back, we've done some significant drainage products. So there's crushed rock, there's a French drain now. There's different things that have happened that have definitely helped those issues. Moving forward, I mean, and part of this as well, we're definitely addressing a lot of leaks and water issues as well moving forward with this. There's definitely all areas have been really looked at, and that was definitely a concern of mine. But what we've noticed is with these heavy rains, et cetera, what we have done for drainage has really done its job, and it's working like it should now. You don't have water running in through the buildings, into the doorways. It's channeled now and it's maintained. Of course, there's not saying that there's not other issues in the building that are causing water.
And this is also to say that there are not other maintenance projects that would be going on, right? Like there's still regular scope of maintenance, repair, supplies for operations and stuff. These are just 5 priority items that we wanted to make sure we were bringing forward, being transparent, that we feel these are the priority and the scope of work that would need to be done. So for funding options, what we would like to do is leverage as much of this current year's fiscal budget as we can. So that means being very cautious and watching our expenditure lines in other schools too, and really putting an eye on priority where this is such a late in the fiscal year project. we do have the option to see what else comes up this year, because oftentimes this is the cost center that has unplanned expenses. So we'll have a good idea of how much of our current year budget we can put towards, this project. But right now, we're hoping an estimate of half of it, right? So we're hoping that we can pay for half of this flooring project with this current year's budget if, Mark is very careful
Yep.
with his spending. And if we have other areas in the budget where we could be cautious too. Which means the remainder of it would go into the FY 26 budget, right? So you would see kind of instantly a jump of $47,000 in repair and maintenance for that flooring project at Libby Tozier. You're up next.
Anything else, guys, or move on? Next project, of course, is the windows and the sills. Again, going through every room, we all know, it's a mess. All the sills can't enter the building. When it rains, it rains all right, and it goes inside the building, and it creates a lot of water problems. The sills are completely rotten, the windows have had it. Most classrooms, you could correct me if I'm wrong, you can't open your windows, ventilation, it just goes on and on. So looking at this, of course, juniors window and glass, back when I was a building person for RSU 2, they did the complete district. I found, we got tons of estimates from people. This little company out of Lewiston, Maine came in and made wonders happen for us in the district. Shane's a wonderful guy, great businessman, and he does top quality work, and he has a passion for schools, kids, and he just puts his heart behind it. So he's a great guy. We again had explored every room, every window. He did lots of investigations and came back multiple times. What he's proposing is, the scope of work for him would be, he would be taking out all the old windows, of course. When taking out all these old windows, there's gonna be rotten wood. There is gonna be, what do we really know? It's gonna be a mess behind there. By the time these windows get put back in, everything's gonna be new, classroom side, outside, all the wood will be replaced, anything that's needed to be repaired. He is very thorough, he's honest, and again, the honesty comes in when you find junk, right? Anything will be reported, he'll let us know what it finds. There's just so much work, and it's a can of worms as he described it to me. He has an idea of what this is gonna be, but till we get it ripped apart, anybody would guess that it's gonna be a can of worms. The job itself is approximately 2 weeks' work. He's very flexible, weekends, nights, he would absolutely work around us to make this work, and if we pulled the trigger and could do it immediately, well, we could get these guys here immediately and they'll bump some work around for us, okay? He definitely knows this is really on my plate and we really need to get this fixed. So as money comes, then we're gonna go for it. 2 weeks' work, hopefully, in a perfect world, we're saying the beginning of 20 or sometime in 26, this could get done. The windows and the sills, not to jump around, kind of go again with, we're gonna be doing some soffit fascia repair. There's so much rottenness around there. These guys really will be coinciding the project together, because without one of them, you really need the carpenter behind him. We went around with a ladder and we were checking wood up by the roof and everything, and about every 3 feet, you can literally put your fingers through everything. It's a mess. So part of that, of course, I'll get back to that second estimate, but Shane's estimates for the windows are $76,350. And I have to tell you that I think that is a pretty darn good price.
How many windows do you know?
And let's see, he has it all noted down here.
Are you eliminating any to cut costs, like on heating and stuff like that?
Windows? No,
So the same amount of window space?
same amount, but a better double pane Harvey windows going in. It's gonna be,
Help with heating.
yeah,
so
it'll be
better
much more
insulation.
efficient. And as well, those hot times when the classrooms are roasting. These Harvey windows, they're all up to code for schools. No child can fall out of it by any means, but they're gonna have the capability to open this window up and have a beautiful screen. And I've been in some of these stuffy classrooms when I first started, and kudos to the teachers and these children trying to learn in these stuffy
They might
classrooms.
actually be able to put fans in their window, is that what you're saying?
Is this quote a best case scenario or a worst case scenario?
Well, he is planning, for a worst case scenario. If we look in his estimates, he's very thorough. Again, why I love dealing with Shane over the years is you don't get any surprises from this man. He's really good at what he does. You know, we did 9 buildings at RSU too. This man, I'm not saying that would happen here, but this was the man that came back and gave us a rebate off our costs because he finished up so quickly. He's as honest as the day is long. Again, like I said, when he pinpoints all this, he's a man of his word and he's really thorough.
58 window.
58 windows.
58 windows, yep.
Since you're gonna replace windows, you're gonna need to put some shades in some windows, because you're gonna need that. Is that included in any of this?
Well, this is not, but that is something on my end for buildings and grounds that, putting shades in a classroom is a very common, part of my job sometimes. So it's something that we would look at and explore for sure.
Because you have, some sides of that building have the sun coming in, so.
Most of them have shades right now, and I would
Yeah.
assume that they would still fit.
Yeah, and if they didn't, we would make it right. We'll make it work.
It's bad for everyone to have some shades. wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yep, yep.
So in shifting gears and thinking about funding for this. Some of you who've been on the board for a couple of years might remember that we came forward with a request to start a capital improvement plan or capital improvement fund. So our plan would be to bring that forward as a warrant article again in this budget cycle. So the warrant would be drafted with creation of the fund, putting money in the fund, and then giving the board authorization to use the fund, right? But it's intended to leverage tax dollars that have already been collected. So it's funded through fund balance. So it's not an additional assessment to the towns or taxpayers. It's what we have in fund balance that we are purposing towards. It's like a piggy bank for big projects, right? But the board authorizes what projects we are paying for out of that piggy bank, right? This is, to me, this is a perfect example of what you would leverage funds like that for, right? So that would be our ask, right? Is that given the timing of our budget process and also the timing of when this project would take place, we'd like to use that to not have to collect from taxpayers to fund this project. So we would come to you and probably ask for about $150,000 to $200,000 to put in that capital improvement fund from fund balance, and then authorize the board to use it for repairs and maintenance of this nature at their discretion.
And building envelope, that's the sills and
Yeah.
everything they.
No, building envelope is like siding, fascia.
Oh, siding.
Yes. Yeah, the windows and sills are together in that first line. So you'll notice those two are banded in white.
Yeah.
Because their timeline and funding option kind of goes together. So thinking of those as a joint project. Teresa, you had a question?
Yeah.
Perhaps new to the board, is there a balance already in the capital improvement fund?
We don't have one. The last time it was brought forward to the board, it wasn't approved to go on the warrant. So it was removed from the warrant. It was removed as an article from the warrant, which means it didn't go forward to the public budget meeting for the voters to approve.
Is that because we were concerned about passing the budget?
As I recollect, I feel like it was about how that would be viewed, how it would be viewed by community members. I don't recall all of the conversation of why it didn't move forward, but that's what I recollect, is that it felt like we were squirreling money away, you know. But to me, like this time around, it is evident what the purpose of that fund is for. So by statute, the voting body at the public budget hearing has to approve establishing the fund, but that's only done once. Once it's established, it's there, right? And then they approve what's put in it. And then the board is authorized as a third party to expend from that fund. And what's nice about that fund, if it were to be approved and brought forward, is that if there were something substantial that was unplanned and there were funds in there, then we're not going back and asking for more money. We're taking the money that we've carefully put aside, that's already been collected and rolled into our fund balance in case something were to happen. And this isn't in case, this is, we know it's gonna happen, so we're just trying to be smart and not assess more.
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I truly believe having a capital improvement fund really helps prepare you for the future. And I know Litchfield, they have, that's something they started a few years ago. And I think if we could, on our end, go and speak to select boards and explain why and what it's gonna pay for, that maybe we could have more buy-in from them initially before we think about
Sure.
putting it forward.
Yeah, as I'm recollecting more, I feel like the timing of it was shortly after the failed referendum for the school addition, and the community at the time, I think, was having some real heartache about that
Yeah.
process and what happened throughout. So
Absolutely.
that's my guess, is that it was sort of not that it wasn't a good idea, but that the community was like
Bad
not,
time.
yeah, bad timing. Yes, yep, but go ahead, sir.
All right, so, moving on to the HVAC. This is a huge project. We've been dealing with Siemens, of course, getting the insights. This would be an all summer project. This is a lot of work. You know, when you look at the, of course, it just say at the price tag, 1.5 million. HVAC's the biggest cost of, in any school for that, you know, that expenditure for sure. Time frame, like I said, you know, it's a lot of work. I could see them being there all summer doing that. And talking with Lorian, it definitely would be that way for sure. You know, and this is, again, and that's an estimate. Could it be a little less? Sure, but you know. Again, the air quality there, you know, we go back to that. Thank God for us, though, we already have a little HVAC there, okay? So we can build off that, and it's not like it's a brand new concept there. So there's some pros to this, even though the price tag looks hefty. The one thing I definitely wouldn't want to be the one trying to wiggle out the 1.5 million. It's a lot of money, and I know when people probably see that price tag, they're like, "Are you kidding me?"
But just as a reminder, remember, a couple of years ago, we put in an SRRF for HVAC at Libby Tozier, Carrie Ricker, and I believe Sabas Primary. And so we took that price tag out of that. So CHA, who did the SRRF applications, priced it at 1.5 million, so that's why we put it here.
And that's also why the estimated cost is italicized, because this isn't an up-to-date, accurate estimate. The amount of time that it will take to get such an involved estimate, because when you look at HVAC as a project, you're not just walking the building. You're looking at structural plans, you're looking at the structural integrity of the roof, how much it can support, what type of HVAC system makes sense based on the engineering plan. So there's a lot more that goes into that. So what we did is just put our best estimate of what had been brought forward previously, knowing that there's probably some fluctuation there.
Did we ever hear back about the revolving renovation funds?
So
And
those,
that lack,
we didn't get,
We didn't get
those were 2 years ago.
We didn't get those, what we got is the ADA work, and they are working on that.
okay.
Yeah, they're small projects, but yes. And if you close SPS, we will not take the funds for SPS, obviously. But, and, you know, we've talked a lot about, and you see it there, definitely applying to the SRRF. They were not available this year. They always do it every other year. So they were not available this year.
They were available.
Pre-K, well, they got pre. It was a different fund, yes.
Yeah.
But so next year, they plan obviously to open them again. High priorities are roofs and HVAC, so you'll see that's why they're there, and Sam goes over that. But definitely applying for those grants again, to see if we can qualify. Last round, I think one district got 3 or 4 projects. We were way down, but we keep applying, you know, and there's a need there.
Yeah, and so similar to the building envelope and window and sill projects that were banded together, the larger projects like the HVAC and the roof repairs are banded together as well, because what we would try to do is to find an energy company like Siemens, or there are some others around the state. We'll be talking to some of those folks in coming days and weeks, but if they could package these projects in a way that shows energy savings, there's also rebates and things that we can look into that we can leverage for covering portions of the expense through Efficiency Maine and other programs like that. So we will be trying everything that we can as creatively as possible to minimize the cost to the taxpayer if and when these projects come to fruition. You'll also notice that we saved the best for last, if you will, right? Like, so those two last projects have very high price points, right? We have a functioning roof right now, we have a functioning HVAC system, but if we are going to be in that building long-term, both of those need significant attention. That's also why on the timeline, they are bumped out to FY 27. What that will allow us to do is leverage what we see happen with our applications for a major capital construction through the state. We will know by August of next year, did we make the cut? If we did, I'm sure Mark and his team, like us, we would not say, let's dump $2 million into Libby Tozier if the state's gonna fund a project that will be moving out of that building, right? So it's gonna give us a little bit of breathing room to find out which direction we're going after that application process comes to fruition. Additionally, SRF is an application process with a limited number of applications that are approved, right? So we could in tandem also be looking at a municipal bond bank application, which would give us the best financing rate outside of 0% financing through SRF, right? And some state forgiveness for a project like that. So we'll be investigating all of those options to try to keep any interest-bearing loan to a minimum if we can. And those municipal bonds come up semi-annually, so we'll have more opportunity to play around with that timeline and see what will work.
Do you have an estimated yearly cost if we were to put both of those on a bond and get approved as a bond?
I did, I don't remember.
Uh.
I can look it up though really quickly because the Maine Municipal Bond Bank, they have a really quick link on their website where you pop in the amount you want to finance, the number of years you're going to commit to paying it back, and what that would look like. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm not even gonna say.
Yeah.
I
You can do it, well, you can.
Yeah, I can.
Sheena comes up.
Yeah, I can take a break and look at that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. I know in the past, we've used Siemens to fund some of our energy saving projects. And we're paid for the cost of the project by the energy that we save. Do they still do that?
I bet they do, but their interest rate is not gonna be as good as the Maine Municipal Bond Bank.
Right, but what I'm saying is you're not taking money from the citizens to pay for it because you're paying with it with the service. I mean, with the saving from energy saving. Cause they figure all that
Oh,
out.
yeah, no, I see, that would be what we would do, we just wouldn't, I wouldn't recommend financing through them, because the interest rate
Right.
would be a better interest rate through Maine Municipal Bond Bank.
I don't know if they'd do that because that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I know in the past, like we did lighting projects with them, you know, all the LEDs, we did the air handlers in the high school with them and stuff like that, and we didn't have to go out to the taxpayers for over $1 million worth of money, but we're paying with it through the savings, and they give us a report on those savings
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah.
And that's how we're making the payment is with our energy savings. So what happens is they lock in whatever you're spending right now. So that's a fixed cost. And whatever money gets saved pays off the work and the equipment and all that, and they figure all that out with a timeline. How that goes. I mean, you could get a representative from Siemens to come in and talk to you about what we've done in the past.
Yeah, we've been.
Oh,
talking
we've
about
met,
that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
met
We've
two
met
times.
multiple
They've
times,
met-
we had a different company.
And I just didn't know if they
Yeah.
still did that
They
because,
do.
you know, the windows and sills and the building envelope, HVAC and the roof repairs would all be covered underneath those savings numbers.
That's true.
Sam, could you explain to me? If we have specific projects in mind, we have estimates, we know how much. Why do a capital improvement fund versus just putting in the FY 26 budget?
Because the FY 26 budget, anything that goes in there, we have to say, we have to get that money from the taxpayers, right? So we have our state allocation that we get, it's all those miscellaneous revenue lines, et cetera, but we have our required local contribution and our additional local contribution. So anything that goes in those budget lines raises that dollar amount and raises what we're assessing the taxpayer at, right? What we're talking about with the capital improvement fund is we have a fund balance. Our audit was just completed. We don't have to get an extension this year.
Yay, good one.
But with what we have promised to balance the budget for this year, we will have some monies like 200,000, I think is what I mentioned, or 150 to take from that fund balance. So already collected money, so not additional tax burden, right?
Mhm.
And move into that capital, so transferring it into the fund to be used for those specific purposes. So that way it's not additional raised tax dollar.
So what, you know, right now it's called undesignated. What you would be doing is
You're
designating
designating.
part of it.
I understand.
Yeah, okay,
And that's the same money that we use to lessen
correct,
every year when they want us to take
correct.
that bank account balance, the taxpayers want us to use that to just lessen the tax burden of the next budget anyway. So. I mean,
But you're
just
still
clarify.
doing that by not putting in the budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is instead of reducing the budget and then increasing the budget to
Correct.
pay for these, we would just be
So-
directly, I thought.
I guess I'm still, so why can't you still just put it into the budget and then utilize the funds to reduce the budget? It's a,
If you put it
at
in
the
the
end of the
budget.
day, it's the same thing, correct? So why? Does it have to be in a designated capital improvement fund to do these projects? Is that?
It doesn't have to be, no, it doesn't have to be, just in my experience, I feel like the lower the budget is, the easier we can pass it.
This is what I would caution on that. So I hear what you're saying, because what you're saying is, okay, instead of designating $600,000 like we did this year, we're gonna designate $800,000 to offset that $200,000.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is,
That wouldn't be your revenue to
what I'm
offset?
saying is, like, so you wanna fund windows and sills for 76,350. You add that into the FY 26 budget, and then you take the balance revenue that we have and offset the budget by the same dollar figure.
That's what I just
So
said.
it zeroes out, right? So what,
But you count on it every year,
that's the issue, I think, that,
correct?
because yeah, that I think was where we were held up last time with it, was that it's something that is repetitive year after year, and it's not just for single projects, I think that's where we got hung up with it last time, if I remember
With the
right.
capital,
What?
with the capital line item, whether it got approved or not.
Yeah,
Yeah, but as a board, we could decide not to put any money in the capital improvement
Right.
fund next year. We don't need it.
That would be it.
Yeah, I mean.
A lot
the
of
aim it
districts,
is-
Yeah.
many districts have different funds. I think every town does too, to make sure that you have it in the bank. It's being transparent. We're using it for capital improvement. Because you'll never, ever, the capital improvement lists that we have, you're never gonna tackle anything if you don't start saving up to tackle them.
Yeah.
What you're saying is do it one-time basis, right? But that's a $200,000 project. What about $1 million project? Or what about a $500,000?
do you not still have the funds? I don't know. I mean, you're just,
You wouldn't
it's,
be every year you're putting 100,000 in it, and then the board decides what they would put the $100,000 towards.
yeah, but why you even I don't know why you even wanna have that much excess at the end of the year, but.
Oh, we can't have that much excess. Aren't we limited in how
Yes.
much excess we can have anyway?
Yeah.
Right, there's a percentage that we
Right.
Correct.
are limited at.
So does this help you with offsetting that percentage because you can dump it into your capital improvement fund?
No, I mean,
I'm
I
not
think
sure I like this.
one way that I think of it is that capital improvement projects tend to be very costly. So if they're going in and out of the budget, they can fluctuate the budget a lot, whereas if your budget is there for more routine expected maintenance, then your capital plan is over here for big items that come up as.
Sure, no,
needed.
I totally understand the reason.
Mhm.
I'm not sure,
I guess,
I feel like there's something that's being missed here, so I'm just.
another thing to throw into the like hump things to think about is that, the past 2 years, maintenance item has been the one, because we vote on each warrant article independently. If we were to boost up the maintenance warrant article by like, 200,000, there's a good chance it's gonna get hit because the voters vote on each warrant article.
Not
Where
if
if we
you're
have a
offsetting that same $200,000 with fund balance.
Well, we can say, we can only offset the whole budget. And then we'd have to go through and explain it very meticulously, I guess, to throw that in there. Because sometimes it seems like they just look at each warrant article and they'll go, why is maintenance 200,000? We'd have to very explicitly say that we have 200,000 from our thing, you know what I mean? We just have to be careful to throw that.
I guess one concern I would have would be the board choosing to fund projects that necessarily the public wouldn't necessarily agree with down the road. Would be,
Right, empowers the board, yes.
empowers the board.
Christine Header.
Oh, this just felt similar to, a few, maybe several years back, I don't honestly remember. The town of Sabatis, basically said that they were, excise taxes were coming in or whatever that you pay on your car. And the decision was made to reserve this specifically for road maintenance, because they were just kind of being put into a general fund and then being used, and then roads were getting kind of short-shrifted. So the way that I look at this is that you're taking some funds and you're saying, okay, we know that these expenses are coming down the road and we don't want to spend this money out of hand. We want to save it for an existing cost that we know is coming. We do know it's coming, and so you reserve that funding specifically for a purpose. In the same way that the excise taxes were reserved for road maintenance. So we know we're going to spend this. We know we're going to spend it on specifically maintenance and repair. It is capital funds, and so it is constricted. It's not like this money is something that you could go and say, all right, let's go and buy a bunch of new cars. Like, it's for capital. And I understand your concern about empowering the board, but I think that
It's just year over year. It's not, if you were talking about a one-time capital improvement fund, I would be in agreement with it, but where it's not a one-time,
but
just for road repairs, okay, but it's.
well, just for road repairs, but that road repair budget
I'm just-
exists
I
in
guess I'm all-
perpetuity. And you spend out of it as needed. So this year, we didn't have that many potholes and we don't have to, and so the balance sits in the fund. And it's earning interest, which is always a great thing for money to be doing for you. And it's just sitting there. And then when you need it, when a really bad winter hits and, you've got to repair a road for, 5 miles of just complete trash road, that money's there. It's been sitting there and you have it. As opposed to having to find the funding for it all at once. So in my mind, it makes sense in the same way that in your personal budget, you go, okay, we're gonna need to buy a car eventually. We're going to put $1,000 a month away because we know that eventually our current car is going to die and we will need a new one.
I guess I have a clarifying. Question. Can we vote as a board to allocate the 228,000 total for the carpets and the windows and so, we're doing just the capital improvement fund. So I'm sorry, 134,000. Could we vote to just allocate our bank account money towards doing that without the capital improvement fund? Do we need that in order to
Yeah,
allocate that?
because remember that you're bound by statute to not expend more than what the taxpayers gave you in this fiscal year's budget.
Because of the
Right.
budget.
Yeah.
So, I thought
And what
we
the
didn't
statute
say
says
we
is
would
that
do
the
it.
voters have to approve establishing the fund
Yeah.
They have to approve the transfer, so they have to approve designating the money to go towards capital improvement. And then they have to authorize you to say what those to approve the expenditures.
So if we wanted to do that this year or for fiscal year 26, if it's not already preemptively in the budget, we would have to go through the taxpayers to have like a vote with them to allow us, or is there no way we could do it without?
Are you talking about FY 25?
I guess say this year, if we didn't have it in our budget, preemptively going, the taxpayers approved. Is there any other way that we can do it? Could we go through a vote to the public or anything? We just are locked and we can't do that capital improvement fund. We can't even
Yeah,
have the public vote to allow us to spend 130.
I don't know, I mean.
You would have to go to referendum for that.
That, okay.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, we talked about that is you would have to have, the easiest way to do it is what we proposed, I don't know if it was last
2 years
budget or 2 years ago, is it's an article at the public meeting. We'd explain what it's gonna be used for. If they approve it, then it's done. And so I think, I think all 3 towns have a, what?
Yeah.
We have multiple reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah, different things.
So I think the towns both understand that there's a need for those different ones. What it didn't do is it didn't make it through the board last time. So we never went to public hearing on it because the board did not approve it. So we would have to talk as a board, like we're doing right now, about why is it important? What are we gonna be using it for? How much are we gonna ask for, and so it'll be part of when Samantha has the auditors come, how much is in our fund balance? How much are we allocating of our fund balance to balance the budget for next year, right? How much is there? And right now, we're feeling comfortable that we could allocate 200,000 into that capital improvement fund.
I'm just wondering what the process would be if we don't capital.
I think you have to ask
Compared to,
voters,
you know what I mean?
it's almost like remember when we didn't balance the budget when I was first hired? We had to go to referendums to ask for, we probably would have to do something like that.
So it's either on the taxpayer vote or the capital, if we have a capital improvement fund, it's on a school board vote. To try to get that money if it's not in the budget to begin with.
Correct. Has to
It's
be
not-
designated.
If it's not designated. in the
We have to
budget.
designate the funds.
So if we were to create a capital fund, we don't have to have the same amount in that capital fund year after year after year.
No.
No,
So we determine that as we're building our budget.
correct.
So every year, when the public is voting, they are voting on the capital improvement number
The amount that's
The
gonna
amount.
be designated.
that is designated, okay.
Yeah, they only have to establish it once.
So I think one of the tricky things that I'm trying to play devil's advocate in my brain of that I think the general public that isn't part of these conversations is wondering is why do we have a fund balance? Like if we're saying like, oh, this is as bare as the bones can get, why is there $4 or $5 or $6 or $700,000?
Wait,
So that's the part that we need to negotiate.
Exactly.
I guess it's-
Right, there's some people that say you should be at 0 every year, but then you have no wiggle room.
Right. So I think as a board, I think we need to understand that because I think there's information. I think we all have kind of our lived perspective and have an understanding of what we think it is, but that's part of the root of why the budget doesn't pass.
Well, I can tell you for a fact, fund balance is a pretty new thing. Because for a while, we had no fund balance. We had negative fund balance for a while. So getting back to the fund balance piece, to have the capital improvement fund is just a way to say we're taking designated funds we already have that we don't have to put in the budget in order to spend that. And there's plenty of guidelines and safety nets that we just can't go out and spend it
Right.
haphazardly. So I think it's just a matter of designating that piece and saying, well, this year we're gonna do this project, this project, this project. It comes up to 230,000. We got 260,000 in the budget. Okay, we can do the projects. Next year, we might not have that because we've already spent that money on those projects. So we might say, okay, we're gonna put 50,000 in or 100,000 in and build it up over 4 or 5 years and see what other projects come up. And I think, like you said, the towns all have fund balance for trucks and fire trucks and, highway equipment or whatever.
They have different funds. Yeah.
So they get it. And we've talked about it many, many times. To have
And some places take out capital improvement funds, loans over 30 years.
right,
And then they put the payments in, and
yeah,
they designate, like in Auburn, we used to get $1 million
Sure.
a year to spend on capital improvement or more, depending what the city allocated, but they had a loan that
Right.
went over and over and you would get the money and.
So what are the safety nets that prevent the board from haphazardly spending the money for whatever they want, aside from not having the money that they need for the project?
Who would come to you for approval?
It's capital improvement, it's a
Come to the
capital,
board for approval.
Yeah.
But there's no safety nets to prevent, I think you said prevent the board from haphazardly spending the money. So you mentioned safety nets that would.
Well, I'm saying the
Aside
safety
from
net
not
was
having money, what?
the voters vote to put the money in at the budget meeting, right? And then it's up to the board to decide what projects we're gonna spend it on.
Right.
So
correct.
I just wanna make sure we have enough time to get through all of our
Yeah.
presentations.
Mhm.
I think what we need to table is the capital improvement, but we need more investigation and research into it, and I'll let you go ahead.
I just wanted to get back to this presentation on Libby Tozer improvements. This is all, to me, it seems like this is all stuff that would have to be done regardless of Sabata's primary closing.
Correct.
Yes.
That's absolutely, yes,
So if we were, to- if we
Getting
were, to-
back to the point,
Yes,
like we're
exactly.
taking off the list of similar items of Sabata's primary, that would be.
right, so if Sabata's primary stayed open, this would still be there on the table in addition to anything that Sabata's primary
Yes.
needed.
Absolutely.
But also don't forget, we talked about closing Libby Tozier too, or maybe
Right.
some other alternative, right? So this is still to just put it out there that if you're going to continue with Libby Tozier long-term,
They
it's
do
a
it before
must.
2027 and
Right,
avoid
I just
$2
don't,
million.
I just don't want people to think that we have to do these because we're closing Sabata's primary.
Right,
Oh,
good
yeah,
point.
great
Yep,
point,
yep,
great
yep, yep.
You could decide not to do any of it.
Yeah, and just let it continue to
Right.
deteriorate, right?
Right. Right.
So we have a few more presentations, but we definitely need to look more into that capital
Yeah,
improvement
we will
plan.
definitely
I'll
put
find-
something together on that.
Get something together
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
we'll, can we get that for the January 8th? Or do you think we need it for the January 8th, or is that too soon? And I know you're not gonna be here, Scott, but we can obviously make sure that you get that information.
Yeah, because we had, I think last time, even the auditor, Casey, talked about,
Or we can
The
table
duration
that
of
too
capital.
until after, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be on
no,
that
this,
date.
this doesn't have to do with the closing, that can. go
This would,
later.
this would have to do with the budget, the capital improvement plan.
We just
Sure.
thought it was important to say,
Yeah,
these are the things we would high prioritize to do to Libby Tozier.
yeah.
Doesn't mean
So
we
the
would
ways
have
we
to do any of
ways
it.
we can do it.
Just, I wanted to make sure,
No, and I'm not discounting,
exactly, so,
I just clarifying.
oh, I think it's important.
Yeah.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's very important.
Yeah.
So we'll get more information on the capital, and I know Sam, just,
We'll do that.
they basically get like a first tertiary review here of like what we can do to fund that stuff, right? Um, figure out more info on that, and any info we might have then on the SRRF. Which also, what's the SRRF stand for?
School revolving renovation fund.
School revolving.
Renovation Fund. And you can look it up, there's a web, the
Yeah, there's a
DOE has a
website with a
website.
list.
Cool.
I'm gonna, everybody, if you need to take a break, feel free to do so. I need to do so.
All
But.
right, so why don't we take a 5-minute break?
You wanna take 5 and then we'll get.
Take
into
5, you can grab a snack, and then transportate, that's when they're on.
Special comment.
Do your flag.
So we'll do it less, but.
No, all of them.
Okay, we are back live now.
Everybody.
Kids are amazing.
All right, so
Great.
on to transportation.
Yep, so our final presentation is Sheena going over transportation. You don't have to ask Sheena what she thinks about whether SPS is closed. I think it's clear from what she's about to present.
All right, so as those are going around, what I did for you, we're gonna start on the side that, talks about the times of the runs. First, so, I'm gonna kind of go over everything and stop me if you have questions. It's kind of a lot, it can be a lot to wrap your head around. So, definitely ask me, a question if you've got one. So in the first column, where the run times are there, that is our run times for any student that is at Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier. So these times reflect the time that the students load the buses from the time that the last student gets off the bus. So, take those times and that's not the time that all students are on the bus. The second column there with the run times is for students that are at SPS. So, those times include the transfer bus time. So, for those of you who don't know, there are 3 buses in the afternoon that go to Sabattis Primary School, and they pick up all the students that are going to go home on a bus. And they bring them, there's about 90, students that they bring to Carrie Ricker. From there, when they get to Carrie Ricker, those students get off the bus, except for the students that go home on the bus that they're on already. And they go inside Carrie Ricker and they separate into their reporting lines to get onto the bus that they're gonna go home on. So that transfer time column shows how much time they're on that transfer bus. We try and drop off as many students as we can from Sabattis Primary School on our way to Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier. So that way those kids don't have to be on the bus as long. So the total time there for SPS run time is including that transfer time. So as you can see, we do have students on there as much as an hour and a half in the afternoon. And again, that's from the time they get on the bus at SPS and Sabattis till the last student gets off in the afternoon.
So, one question. So you're saying the same student would be on a bus for an hour and a half
In the morning and in the afternoon.
in the morning and in the afternoon?
Not in the morning. The
Not-
morning we don't
okay.
transfer. Yeah. The run
Right.
times are still long for some of them in the morning, as you can see, for example, the gold bus, the blue bus, pink bus, yellow bus. There's quite a few that are over an hour long. And they're going by Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier at say 7:45, 7:50. But they need to go all the way to Sabattis first,
Right.
drop Sabattis primary kids off, come all the way back, Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier, about 45 minutes later. So I put on there too, once you see, in the transfer, if they're transfer students or if they stay on the bus. There's not a whole lot that stay on the bus in the afternoon, like most of them get off. You're talking about 3 buses that keep students off. The other 7 buses have students that get off for 5 to 10 minutes. They can use the restroom if they need, and then they hop back on a bus and they go home. So the last column there is reflecting SPS closure run times. So right now, what I did is I kind of restructured the runs to illustrate what they would look like in the event that we did not have to go to Sabattis Primary School every single day. And so, buses work their way on the outskirts and they work their way towards Sabattis in the morning. In the afternoon, they kind of do the opposite. So what we'd be doing is working our way from the outskirts of Sabattis, Litchfield and Wales, and coming in, rather than kind of going in, out, back in.
So you can see there that it changes the time that students are on buses drastically. And so, every run, I can say would be under an hour, you know, aside from inclement weather. But they would be under an hour. Does anybody have any questions on run times?
These are our littlest kids.
They are, yeah.
I have a question. I'm not sure how to word it to make sense, but
Yeah.
with the closing of Sabattis Primary, does any of these routes or could any of these routes change? Like, does Sabattis Primary have any effect on where the routes are run, I guess?
It does, and I've taken the software that we have, our routing software, and kind of restructured them
Okay.
to look like that. And so they would change, not drastically,
Yeah.
but some of them would change or work backwards,
Yeah,
essentially.
I guess that was my question is, has that been looked at and has that been factored into these times as well?
Yep. All
One,
right,
one question.
yes,
So the students now that go to Sabattis primary from Sabattis, some of them now will be going to Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier. So their run times are gonna be drastically changed. Do you know what that number is? The amount of students that now go to, which would be first and second graders, right?
yep.
And the
So,
third graders would have been going to Carrie Ricker anyway next year, so we're talking basically first graders.
Right.
So their run times would increase by what? Cause they don't pick up everybody, then drop off at Sabattis, right?
in the morning, you're
Yeah.
talking about? No, they pick up everybody
Right,
and then go to Sabattis.
and then go to
primary.
Sabattis.
Yep. The only ones that we pick up on our way to Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier right now are students that live on 197 and attend Carrie Ricker or Libby Tozier.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're talking probably a minimal number of students that would be. Their bus time would be increased from Sabattis going to Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier.
Yeah, minimal,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, cause you figure Wales students, Litchfield students all going to Sabattis, the amount of first and second graders, well, we got the number. Like first and second graders that go to Sabattis from Sabattis.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe 20 a class, if that.
Yeah, yep. And again, that's based on where they live, of
Sure,
course, you
right.
know, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, it's about 14 minutes from Sabattis primary to, Carrie Ricker and Libby
Right,
Tozier right
yeah.
now, you know, and we would obviously structure the routes to pick up the ones that are closest last,
Right,
you know, so
Yeah.
they would be on the bus.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, I mean,
My son
Right.
he's in Sabattis.
yeah,
He was going to Sabattis primary last year. He gets picked up at 7:28. April's always on time.
on the minute.
But down to the minute, 7:28.
yeah,
Sabattis primary start time was 8. And Carrie Ricker's 8:30,
Yeah.
so. He's on it longer now
right,
because it's go to Sabattis primary first and then Carrie
Right.
Ricker. But he'd still be on it a little bit longer because they're still picking people up. They're just
Sure,
not doing a
right,
drop off
yeah.
and the whole, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so.
like they're not going from to Sabattis, they're going from this pickup
Yeah.
right to Libby Tozier or Carrie Ricker.
Right. Purple Run, for example, like you would know, it would work backwards than what it is right now.
Yeah.
So let's start on the outskirts of Sabattis over by Birchwood Road off Middle Road. And work her way and end off Maxwell
Right.
Road. Right, cause right now it comes from Maxwell and goes out.
Right,
And
just
around,
that,
and
right,
around.
and then back,
Exactly,
yeah, yeah,
That's a really
More
good example.
direct, yeah.
Yep.
yeah, that's a great example.
Christine.
Oh,
sorry,
thanks.
Christine.
Nope, it's okay.
Christine.
I didn't know exactly where to put this in, and I really like the lowered, run times with, you know, not having the SPS drop off. But my main concern with the closure of SPS is what is going to be happening to before and after care, and how are those kids getting from wherever they're going to be to school? So I didn't know where that should fit, and this seemed like the best place.
So that's all right. So we've talked to the director of before and after care, and they went to Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier to make a decision on where the after and before care would be. Right now, we're at Libby Tozier, is where they would prefer. And so they're still working that through, but at first round, I think she went around, Tanya went around with Brenda, talked about space, needs, and so forth. So it would be right now at Libby Tozier unless something changes.
It used to be at Carrie Ricker.
Well,
Back in
right,
the
the
day.
summer would be at the middle school
Right now.
right now.
That's nice. Yeah, just to make sure that moves and whatnot are unobstructed by a program happening during the summer there.
And any thought around school start time? Will
Oh,
that
yes.
change?
Yes, we're under discussion. We've talked to the administrators that if you approve it, we're definitely gonna align the two schools, Carrie Rick and Libby Tozier. So Sheena and I have talked about, and we can talk to the middle school and high school too about when their start time would be in relevance to when the elementary, and would there be an adjustment there at all? So that's still in a discussion.
So if we align Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier at the time,
Mhm.
it would be like we would just be picking up those students and going directly to Carrie Ricker, Libby Tozier.
Exactly.
And then coming back and picking up the middle school and the high school and going directly to there with probably no switching. Except for the kids that are at middle school that go to, they go to high school. That have to switch buses at the middle school.
Well,
They would
middle
switch-
school and high school still run the same.
Right, I know that.
Yeah, and then they would head up to Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier.
But they wouldn't have to go to Sabatis, is what I'm
Correct,
saying.
not right, they're going directly
They're
off
going
the route
directly
in,
on the route in.
which is how Sheena would be building the routes,
Right.
is picking up after they drop, then they start the pickup.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yep.
Mhm.
I'll go into the cost savings if anybody doesn't have any other questions about run times.
I was just gonna ask, I don't know if there's been a feasibility study or anything like that, that the main, the DOT could do. Having an exit put in, like 197, because that's not far from the school. If that would cut down on bus times as well. If we had an exit or an entrance there,
By
because I
Libby Tozier?
know. Huh?
The road by Libby Tozier?
Yeah, because that would be, I mean, that would have been great for me, not to take 197 and just get on the turnpike right there and get off in Sabatis. That might help with busing situations in the future. I know it takes a while before that gets approved, but I mean, that's a well-traveled road that could really be, have a big impact on the turnpike.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to flip your pages over? I will go into the estimated cost savings. So what I did was something similar, all the way on the left there is the bus run. The current mileage that bus does from the time they start their run to the time they get to their school, and vice versa, from the time they leave the school to the time they drop off their last student. So I broke that down, every single run there, and then the difference over on the far right. Like I said, restructured all the runs, so I was able to calculate what the mileage would be. And it's again, an estimate. So we'd be saving on an average of 84 miles a day. Right now, our current fuel rate is $2.96 a gallon, so that would be $248.64 per day. And an estimated annual savings of $43,512 a year. Yeah,
What's the average mile per gallon of bus?
they're around 8.
Because this is at 84 miles at $2.96 per gallon. So what you're saying is that the bus uses 1 mile per gallon. Correct? Is my math not mathing or?
So so the buses are traveling 84 less miles per day.
Right.
And then I did, that 84.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I get what you're saying. Yep.
So it's actually,
Yeah, I know.
it's actually,
I didn't
10,
pick up on that either.
Nope, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I don't have my phone on me.
He's calculating.
is so.
Difference, is this
This is what
one
he does.
way or
Yep.
round trip?
84 one way or 84 one?
That is, per day.
So it's like 10.5.
Usually I don't do math.
But then like wear and tear and all of that too.
Right, that is
Yeah.
not calculating anywhere in here.
So I think it's
Lot.
like, I think it's like a $31 savings.
I read, I don't do math.
Per day.
Sorry, what was that number, Scott?
Well, so she said, so
Well, I just see, what was the number that you gave just for the cost savings?
I came up with,
I didn't either, when I talked through it.
$31 is what I can.
well, if it's 84, help me with this, who's the math?
I got you. She said
If it's 84 miles total savings, and
Divided
the
by
buses get 8 miles
by
per
8.
gallon,
Yeah,
then it's 10, it's actually 10.5.
And then times 2.96.
10.5
Which is
times
31.8.
2.96 is $31.08 a day.
I put math worse.
How many days?
175.
That's a big difference. Yep.
5,439.
That's why we have, so we got our transportation units.
Well,
Again, that's not including your wear and tear, that's,
sure.
you know.
Yeah,
would
it's
be-
still
wouldn't-
2,100 miles a year.
Right,
Well, and that's a client,
It's
huge.
a
client.
time. for the
huge time
kids.
difference.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are the,
Good catch.
but are the drivers paid by the hour or by the day?
Hourly, right, and paid it by.
So would there be a savings there?
Mhm,
If they're working less?
Good point.
And was there thought around like? And I think this already happens and like a Litchfield bus is only, so they're only delivering kids to Litchfield so that you don't have kids that are like. Nora and Porter are on the same bus, even though Nora lives in Wales. Nora is like the first kid on.
Yeah.
Porter will be like the fourth and like they're on the bus if they go to Carrie Ricker a really long time. So.
They
Yeah,
actually come back by us.
yes,
Like an hour later.
yes,
Right.
Yeah.
Pick your kiddos up door side.
They pick up
Or
door
they
side
pick up,
first, yeah,
Yep.
which
and then
I'm fine,
head out.
I'm fine with them getting on
Right,
door side.
Yeah.
yes. But
Yeah,
yeah, I just wonder about if there's not the SPS variable, is there a way to kind of consolidate kids based on the town they live in? So there's not so much. Cause we live like 8 miles from school.
Yeah.
Like it takes me seriously 7 minutes to get to school, but it's bus ride's an hour and 20.
Well, and I mean, to wear and tear, I did my math on it. It's 14,700 miles of driving a year, right? If I'm doing 175 days, 84 miles a day. I just make it, now I'm math paranoid, but I think I did it right. And it's 14, it's almost 15,000 miles on the buses. Depending, some buses, you know, buses were affected and weren't, but total combined, I mean.
My driver did 3,000 a week.
Yeah.
Oh, do they?
Except they don't have kids on
Right.
in their,
Right.
imagine
Yeah.
that.
So if the runs are running backwards, you're gonna be picked up closer and heading towards school versus right now, getting picked up, collecting everybody and circling back to school.
Yeah. But he'll be in middle school next year, so it won't matter.
So it won't matter. Mine will matter, so.
Your pickup is still first.
Hence why I dropped it.
You might have more kids taking the bus next year.
Yeah.
What's that?
We might have more kids taking the bus next
Yeah,
year.
I've thought about that too. And we would have the capacity to support more elementary students on the buses. It's the high school, middle school that is very full. But, yeah, it's, only transporting half of Sebatis primary could potentially increase our numbers of kids on buses. So, and we would have room for that.
So could we also leverage the reduction in driving time to maybe get more participation with sports driving? I mean, you certainly don't want to reduce somebody's pay overall because they're working less, but maybe it's a way to continue to earn the same paycheck, right?
I know for a fact that I've talked to drivers over the years. Cause the hardest ones are basketball. You've driven all day. You've driven, you've taken the students to the away game. Some games are not getting back till 10, 11 o'clock at night, depending on where they're playing. So that's a pretty long day for somebody. If you're asking them to drive during the day and then driver sports at night. Football's not bad, it's on a Saturday, Friday night. It's one night a week, but basketball can be 2-3 nights a week.
Yep.
It's tough.
I don't know this,
Transported
but
5
are,
games this week. 5
are
games this week.
we, are bus drivers required under the same Department of Transportation rules, like 14-hour workdays, or is
A maximum?
yeah,
No,
so it's doable.
yeah, it's doable. If somebody wants
We
to
have
do it,
drivers
it's
that
doable.
do it.
Yeah. I have one other question. I know in the past, when we had first done, I think the consolidation, we had brought it up about pickup points for students, you know, so we could pick up a large amount of students in
Full
one,
stops.
you know, instead of per stops, like in town Sabattis. You know, a couple spots in town or out of, you know, I know it's harder out of town in the rural communities and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I know the high school gets picked up at the corner. And I'm pretty sure, cause I've seen like 4 or 5 kids out there. But how many individual stops do we make in town Sabattis?
Almost all of them.
Right,
Yep, I mean, the only roads we do not go down are, well, I shouldn't even say.
well, you
that.
don't go down my road for a fact, I know, cause I never have, my kids always walk to school.
What's your road?
Conway Street in Sabattis.
Yep, no, we don't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
and the
so
ones
we,
across the street from you, we don't
and,
go down.
and then when they got to high school, middle school, they would go to the corner and get picked up there.
Yep, it's same for littles as well, just with some of those side roads to turn a bus around.
Right,
there.
so there's just no room.
Right, yep. but
So
we do-
I was just wondering how much money we could save by consolidating pickup in certain spots, like, I know Sabattis is probably really the only town
Yeah, yep.
that you could do that with, but it used to be when I went to school and when my kids went to school, no, I'm talking my kids now, it's
No,
only 2 years ago.
I know, you're still a youngster.
No, I'm not.
We had to walk.
Anybody that was on the town side of 126 walked to school. And the buses didn't pick up anybody in town.
Yep.
But I'm not saying we do that, because we can't do that for kindergartners or preschool. But for a high school,
It's hard to get people even to comply with our policy.
well, I know that,
I'm just saying,
but I'm just saying.
people don't like to have their kiddos.
Right, I know times are different, but what I'm saying is that they still pick up a few kids
They do, you're right.
in Sabattis at the corner, and I just didn't know if that would,
And to be 100% honest, the red bus is the one that does all those in-town stops. And she has the shortest mileage and time.
right,
run.
sure, because she's picking up so many kids in a short amount of time.
Basically
Yeah,
just
she
does a
just
couple
looping
circles.
around.
I think it's hard because of all the locations of the homes. I mean, my kids are the
Yeah.
only ones to get on the bus.
Right.
In
Yeah,
pretty much a good distance,
It
Yes,
sounds like a win all around.
but
for
yeah,
transportation,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, I think
And I
if they
apologize
could do
for
a
messing up
community
on that.
stop,
I
I
think we're
would
staring at
support
these
it.
numbers for so long. So good catch, thank you.
sure,
It's just 38,000.
but I know that,
I was really happy when I came up with that.
Yeah, me
too.
too.
The times though, it's the time.
Well,
okay?
I just think because it was a gallon, I get why how it happened.
Yeah,
Well, also, I mean, you could figure out time time per hour, hourly wage, you're probably gonna be
Yeah.
around here.
between that and bus
Yeah.
fare.
Yeah.
By
But
the time that we go up and down
with,
one
with the
ninety-seven.
nuances that
Yeah.
Diane mentioned, like when you do have the reduced times, I think
Yeah.
more people will put their kids on the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think more drivers will pick up trips
Yeah.
and things like that. So like,
Yeah.
that's a variable that I'm sure how that will shake out.
Yeah.
yeah.
Fuel cost is never the issue, it's always the bus.
At the time.
Exactly. Yeah, yep, there's no arguing that.
Anybody else have any other questions, comments for clarification, Sheena?
I think it was a great presentation with a lot of information. You guys did a lot of hard work laying this out for us, and I think it's a great first step to let the community know that, you know, we're really putting a lot of effort into it.
Very much. Very impressed. Thank you so much for all your hard work. It's very obvious.
Yep.
That you're being diligent, you're focusing,
We're doing our best.
you are
Make
absolutely.
sure, Make
Doing a
sure
great job.
it's, so the feedback is you understood a lot of it, you know, because that's really our goal is, you know, making sure we're being as, you know, informative for people to really understand those key things.
And we'll update these documents with changes and
Yeah.
put them on the website.
Mhm.
Yep, so they'll all be available to the public.
Mhm.
What's our timeline?
So are you still keeping the question and answer portal open?
We're gonna, we've got to start a new
Right.
page. Yeah.
Okay,
That whole closed,
yeah,
and so then we've got to start a page, they just haven't done that yet.
okay.
Yeah, we'll have a repository and probably a Q&A still.
Yeah.
Cause
Definitely have. to
it
have
works
Q&A.
for the budget.
Yeah,
I think
it
it
does,
helps
it does.
Definitely.
keep, you know, people who can't come or call in or whatever. Go ahead.
Do
Joe.
we need to vote on this? Is this, like, what are the next?
You're always one step ahead,
No,
always.
Ready to go.
no, I'm usually just, you get so used to falling behind, that I gotta ask clarifying questions, to make sure I'm not wandering off.
So we were gonna talk about next steps from here. Right now, we have January 8th, which is the date that we need to vote on this. In order to keep with the April referendum date,
Right.
which I don't know, April 8th, don't
Yes,
quote me.
It is, you got it.
January 8th and April 8th? Is it
Why
really?
not?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it is.
Yeah, we
It's
said
8 and
the
8.
first or the 8th of April, I think. We
Yeah.
landed on the 8th.
not April Fool's Day, I hope.
No.
That's why we went with the 8th.
So we do have a workshop planned for January 8th. Should begin at 5 p.m.
We had it at 5.
5 p.m.
Yeah.
We can get a feel for what you guys think. If you need the January 8th workshop, if you need it at 5 p.m. Or you
Or
wanna,
you think you
Scale it
have
back,
enough
or-
information to vote during the regular meeting?
or if you think. Yeah, I mean, we'll have the updated information.
Is there any other information that you think would be?
Well, that's what I need to hear from you. Is there,
Anything else you're thinking of
is
that
there
we didn't?
any other information you would want for that workshop? Or you feel like I have enough information to make my decision during the regular meeting? That's what Nicole's gonna check in with each of you to see what your thoughts are.
Cause we can keep the workshop, we can shorten the workshop, we can cancel the workshop, right? We don't wanna waste anybody's time, but we also wanna make sure that if you still have additional questions or need anything, or if you don't wanna say today,
Right.
you wanna
January-
digest all
The
this.
January 8th vote is just simply to continue to do the closure, not,
Correct.
not the stuff that we presented is not all set in stone based on that.
Correct,
Yes.
to
You're
proceed
taking-
with
yeah.
the closure.
I know that, I just
Mhm.
wanted.
You want it
Yeah,
to be
because like I
stated.
said, Nicole, this, you know, the paper, this with all that, that has nothing really to do with the closure
Well,
at
that's
this point.
future stuff, right?
Exactly, exactly.
This is for the board to vote to proceed to referendum
Correct.
to close Sabatis primary. That is the vote that we will have on January 8th, and these workshops were to give you all the information you needed to, or wanted, to be able to have an informed decision with that vote.
And then once you vote, it kickstarts Katie and I's process to send all of the cost analysis and lack of need report and closure summary letter to the DOE as well.
Yeah, so the stuff that's going on in the background to get us ready.
So we can, I mean, this is not formal, it's workshop.
I don't-
Just-
I don't personally feel like we need a work. I don't need the extra
No,
work.
I'm all set. This is-
Thumbs up, thumbs
Yeah.
down.
Well,
Thumbs up, thumbs down if you think you have enough information to vote January 8th.
What time is it gonna be? 5:30?
Regular,
So it would be the regular
regular
meeting
board meeting.
if we,
All right, we wouldn't need a workshop. If you're saying. we-
You're right,
okay.
so if we don't need a workshop, what time you wanna do it at?
Well, your regular meeting's at 6:30.
6:30,
Yeah.
okay.
It'd
yeah,
be a regular agenda item on there.
Yeah.
which there is a.
We have to have 2/3 of the board, right?
You have to have a majority of of the board.
Of the board, not just who's present.
So the total points.
Okay.
2/3 of that total points has to be approved on that evening. So if Scott's not there, his points will be in there, but if you all voted, which it sounds sensing, you would have the 2/3.
Right, of all board members, not
And
just.
just got to mail in.
But while you're skiing, we can zoom. We could have.
Can you call us from the chair?
Yeah, as you're going down the hill,
Yeah,
Like, I'm just here for this part.
so it
Yeah.
sounds like you're all ready for no workshop and regular. Okay. all right.
Regular meeting, January 8th.
And then can we have committee meetings on the eighth instead? Because there's a superintendent search that we should
Yeah.
probably.
We can do
That's a
that.
good idea.
Yep.
committee meetings,
If
like
Shelley
all
can
of the
do it.
committees.
No.
Yeah, Shelley, the ones you need. We can talk about that.
Revisit that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, we can use it, yes.
No, I don't.
Putting some different. dates on it. Some were delayed.
Well,
I can't remember.
Probably could get out of work a little early.
I think we're done.
We're gonna be the.
Just so we can stop recording. I think we're done. Good to
Yeah.
go. Thank you, everybody.